Hello and welcome everyone to 42 business growth principles. 40 days, 42 growth business principles, which we cover every single week at 10 a.m. on a Friday. And this slot will change slightly going into next week. We've had a few requests for the timing to be changed slightly because it's the morning in the USA, and some of our US clients and that prefer the live, but we're going to be doing it probably in the afternoons going forward from next week. But the 42 business growth principles is the name of this particular podcast. And I just want to say thank you very much for those that have been supporting me, commenting, and also the emails and that I've been getting. Thank you so much to everyone for that. If you do want to get notification of when the next podcasts are up and running, please let me know. And alternatively, subscribe to any one of the different channels. We live stream this every single week. And at the moment, we are building, and this is all business growth principles, but we will be doing other topics as well. But I thought that a really good way to start business growth principles, and I would say focusing on the services industry, although many of these tools and techniques are across the board, but 42 business growth principles are key principles that, again, I'm going to just repeat my analogy, which is you cannot, they are irrefutable, immutable laws around us. Things like gravity, for instance, I keep mentioning. If you jump off a building and you're going to land on the on the floor, on the ground every single time, you're not sometimes going to jump off and go up or jump and go sideways. I suppose one day when we live on Mars or in space, gravity might change in those environments. But on Earth, right now, if you jump off a building, you are going to land on the ground. So that's immutable. We cannot, it doesn't matter how many times you do it, it's going to be the same thing. These business growth principles are exactly the same thing. They're immutable. They cannot, you cannot fight them. You cannot change it. And really, it's like swimming upstream. It's difficult. It is tough. If you swim upstream against the current, and if it's a really tough river, you're going to go nowhere. In fact, you're probably going to go downstream in any case, no matter how hard you're swimming upstream. So my recommendation to you, and that's what it is about these 42 business growth principles, is to swim downstream, swim with the current, swim with the forces of nature. In fact, that's where we are as human beings. No matter how technologically advanced we think we are getting, we still have to abide by the laws of nature. And these business growth principles around marketing and business development, business growth. So far we've covered marketing being your ultimate leverage. That's episode 1. Episode 2, we covered the multiple channels of distribution. Episode 3, last week, we covered the positioning portion of it. And this week, we are covering the USP, the unique selling proposition. Some people like to call it the UPB, or a unique perceived benefit, which is probably another really good way of explaining it. Because when we say a unique perceived benefit, we're speaking about perception. And if there's anything that is immutable about human nature, and that is perception, is reality for a lot of people. I mean, all you have to do is go and have a look at social media. All you have to do is have a look at the herd mentality. Um, I mean, I've got to say, I mean, I deal with many clients, and I've got to say, I deal with many individuals that do sort of social media marketing and so on. And what has constantly amazed me is the shallowness and the absolute lack of depth of people out in social media. And I'm not talking about everybody. I'm just talking about a few really weird actually horrible people. They trolls, quite frankly. And what's really interesting is in their minds, they think they are right. They have a perceived thought about someone or something, and the perception could have been created through either an image or a message or some kind of wording or a bit of music. Who knows? Um, but almost always it's a reflection of what goes on inside their own minds. And that UPB, unique perceived benefit, is about the perception of someone looking at your product, your service, your offering, you as a person, you as an individual, but not just that, but you as potentially a product or service or offering that you could help and support someone else. So when I look across social media, I'm shocked at at the lack of time and effort people put in to actually understanding and perceiving. um I don't know if perceiving is the right word, in actually in actually getting the correct message, the truth about the matter. People believe so much stuff, and it just blows my mind. But I think we cannot go away from that. I think we got to say, quite frankly, there are things out there that people have perceptions about. There are things there that people think that are not necessarily true, but that people think are made up in their heads. Okay, so let's look at let's look at the law, the 42 business growth principles. The law, the unique selling proposition or unique perceived benefit should be something. And I mentioned this in one of the earlier episodes. When we're doing sales and marketing, and when we're putting ourselves forward, and it could even be when you're applying for a job, um, it could be a salesperson doing a sales pitch. It could be a marketing person or copywriter writing some copy for a website. It could be a child asking a parent for money to go and watch a movie or whatever, go with their friends. It could be any manner of things. It could be, you could be an employee of an organization asking for a particular project to be approved. There will be a perception made up within that other person's mind. And I think one thing that has become clearer and clearer to me over my career is that people have conversations in their own minds far more than they have conversations with other people. I'm going to say that again. People have conversations in their own minds more than they have conversations with other people. If you think about the amount of time that you spend with yourself, I can guarantee it's probably 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and it's probably been since the day you were born. Have you spent that much time with any other individuals? Probably not. But the thing is that we get influenced. Our thinking, our thoughts, our attitudes, our mindsets are are created by often the thinking that we have, the thoughts that go through our minds. And what's even more disturbing to me at times is that sometimes these thoughts, and when I look across the market and so on, many of these thoughts are in repeat mode. The more you repeat something, the truer it becomes. And if we look at politicians, and if we look at big brand marketing, and we look at all this garbage happening around this new, I don't know, people are calling it woke society and all that kind of thing. I mean, it's all about perception. It's all about, that person or that thing doesn't fit within my thinking. Therefore, it can't be something that I can accept. Now, if you look at a unique perceived benefit or a unique selling proposition, we got to be very, very careful, very clear as marketing people and as salespeople and as growth people and as people owning businesses and putting messaging out there, is that people spend a lot more time thinking of their own thoughts than conversing or speaking to others. So when they are looking, and this includes me and you, when people look at a message, all that's happening is it's going to be part of the conversation they're having with inside their own heads. It's critical to understand that. So when someone is perceiving something to be either true or untrue, useful to them or not useful to them, it is very, very often a lot to do with what's going on inside their own heads. So when we're creating a unique selling proposition, a unique proposition to our target market, if we don't clearly understand and we haven't connected with our audience, who we are trying to influence, who we are trying to offer our products or services to, if we haven't quite connected with them at the level of their thoughts and their thinking and their attitudes, their behaviors and their mindsets, our message is going to go to nothing. Our message will go to zero. In fact, it's probably you're going to have people coming up with perceptions that are not even remotely true. I've seen the weirdest comments on social media where people have completely missed the point, yet they have an immense amount of comment and quite frankly, often nonsense to say about something they know nothing about or did very little research or zero research, or in fact have an opinion that's been ingrained in them because they have been having either repetitive thoughts or people have been repeating ideas in their heads, hence the word brainwashing. We have to be very, very, very careful in the way that we go to market. We have to be so clear in terms of the unique selling proposition or unique perceived benefit that we're putting out there, because we also are serving people in the thoughts that they are thinking. So let me share with you what I mean by that. When you look at or you actually try and open up someone's thinking, and you have a look at the thinking, the thoughts that they are having, many of the times the thoughts are happening at such a massive speed that very little detail or thought can actually go into it. So it's a quick impression as opposed to a deep and thoughtful and I would say, put a lot of energy and effort into your conclusion. Many thoughts, many opinions, and many actions and activities are done in haste, are done with zero actual thinking or analysis. And most of our market thinks like that. And if there is a book that I would recommend that you read and study, it's a hard read, make no doubt. It is written by Daniel Kahneman, who is a Nobel Prize winner for his contribution to science and to psychology and that. And it's a book called Thinking Fast and Slow. It's about the two brains that we have: thinking fast, thinking slow. And if you can think of this as an example, if I come to you and let's say you're okay with math, and I say, "What's 1 + 1?" You're going to come up with an answer, most likely 2, because that is an easy problem to solve. It is probably we've repeated it so many times that we know the answer. But if I come with a huge calculation that will probably take you 3, 4, 5 hours of calculations, recalculations, additional calculations, and bringing other things in, if you ever studied math at a high level, that takes a huge amount of thought and energy. So Thinking Fast and Slow as a book and as a concept talks about these two brains, one that jumps to conclusions and the other that thinks in analytical terms. that will actually think things through in what some people would call a logical or a fashion in which you're actually going to do some kind of analytical thinking. However, the conundrum we have as human beings is, is that the the fast brain, the fast thinking assumption brain, the brain that makes assumptions about life and things, um, is the brain that is the default brain, if you like. It's the brain that we go to immediately. We make a quick assessment. So, some people say, how do you make, how quick is it to make a first impression? It is split seconds. If the way someone dresses, the way they speak, their accent, their moves, the way they stand, their face, their hair. I mean, it all depends. I mean, it depends on so many different factors. 1,000 different pieces of information get quickly summarized, and you come to a conclusion. It could be true or it could not. And there is this old cliche: don't judge a book by its cover, but everybody does it. And that is the standard way of doing it. It's the lazy way of doing it, but it's the standard way of doing it. You'll find that as soon as you have to sit down and think through a problem, and you have to solve a deep and let's call it a challenging problem, when you have to sit down and think about that, it drains a huge amount of energy. Quick thinking takes no energy. Sitting down and actually thinking through a problem, let's say a math problem or a problem you're having in life, or even anything that's remotely challenging, going for a test, writing an exam, preparing for a presentation. You can go through the list. As soon as it requires mental energy, it is hard to do. And us as human beings, and Kahneman found that us as human beings, we have this lazy brain mentality where the quick think, the quick assumption is the easy one. It takes no energy, takes zero energy, and you make an assumption about something based on snippets of information, and you come to a conclusion. When it comes to really thinking things through and trying to make a reasonable, analytical decision or a thought process, it takes time, energy, focus. It takes often one having to exclude everything else, and focus entirely on that one problem. So when we're looking at USP, unique selling proposition, unique perceived benefit as a 42 business principles, and we take the thinking fast and slow, the fast brain and the slow brain. Now, the slow brain is the analytical brain. It takes time to think something through. It takes energy. In fact, Kahneman finds that it consumes huge amounts of glucose as which is a type of sugar. And I'm not sure if you've ever studied at a deep or you've had a problem issue, you tend to get the need to replenish that sugar quite quickly, glucose. So you could pick up when you're doing a lot of studying, or you're preparing for an exam, you probably find you eat a little more because you need to keep your sugar levels up. Your brain consumes a huge amounts of glucose and can get depleted from glucose. When you're using your quick and easy brain, there's near no consumption of glucose. There's no consumption of any energy. So coming back to that, these are immutable. I mean, these are proven. And I mean, if you read that book, and other books as well about the way people think and act in terms of behavioral psychology, it is clear to me that unfortunately, we have to on a daily basis deal with the fast brain. We have to deal as with sales and marketing and business and dealing with meeting new people and so on. We are using us as well. Everybody does it, uses the fast brain, the one that doesn't take much energy. When we are faced with a big problem or big issue, that's the time when we then sit down, hopefully, and deal with the issue, but it consumes a lot of energy. Now, there's one thing that I need to mention here is that the human nature is to conserve energy. Our bodies are built around survival. We built our brains and our bodies are built around surviving, um, holding on to energy, not expending unnecessary energy. Why? Because if you look way back from I mean, let's call it a caveman days, but if you look from way back from a survival of the human race, if you like, the survival of the human race is based on your ability to react to danger because you have sufficient supplies of energy to be able to get away from whatever is attacking you or defend yourself from whatever is attacking you. So we are built, naturally, we are built with the conservation of energy built into our bodies, into our DNA. So when it comes to marketing and sales and getting your message across there, we've got to be very, very clear about the audience and that we're talking to and trying to communicate with. We've got to be very, very clear that when we're talking to them, almost always they will be making quick assumptions that use near zero energy, and they are using the continued thoughts that are going on inside their heads. Why? Because they spend most of the time in their own heads. They spend most of the time having conversations with themselves, whether they are positive, negative, or even neutral conversations with themselves. And if we are looking at a unique perceived benefit or unique selling proposition, and we are not taking these two major things into account, this fast and slow brain, this fact that people are continuously thinking about things, whether it's on repeat or whether it is just random thoughts that are going in all directions, whether it's organized thought or whether it is random just thought. If you look at some of the statistics, I mean, I was shocked when I saw it the other day. If you look at social media, I mean, everyone's looking these days at these tiny little mobile phone or cell phone screens, and they're scrolling. So I saw a stat, like it was something like 280 meters of scrolling on average for the average person per day. You got to think about that. It's a tiny little screen. It's probably, I don't know, what's it? 1, 2, 3. It's probably about a few centimeters. Um, how many times you've got to flick, 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 flick to get to 280 meters on average? That means that some days it's more and some days it's less. But to have to, on average, scroll through that much information, imagine what's happening with the marketplace that we're trying to communicate with. People are scrolling through things faster, got continuous thoughts going on inside their heads. There's this myth about multitasking, which is the biggest lot of bull that I've ever seen in my life, is you cannot multitask. What you can do is you can sequentially think about lots of things in sequence. But our brains, and Kahneman proves this, that we can't think in parallel. In other words, you can't think multiple thoughts all at the same time. We think in sequence. We think in multiple thoughts, one after the other. And if you are scrolling 280 meters a day, you're thinking in sequence. You're using your slow brain. But if there is something that comes up and that takes a lot of your time and attention and energy, you could feel incredibly drained from just going through social media, for instance. And if we look at any kinds of advertising, almost all advertising these days is done via some kind of screen, some kind of channel, whether it is all the way from TikTok through to YouTube, through to um, Google searching and so on, or any other tools that we might watch. And if you're an investor, you'll be watching things like Bloomberg and other TV stations. And if you like your soap operas, you're going to be watching other channels and so on. You watch TV, you're going to watch Netflix, you can watch anything, but almost everything is on screen these days. Fewer and fewer people read newspapers. Fewer and fewer people look at banners and notice boards and so on. You still see them around, but less and less do you actually get that. So now you're having this concentration on a medium that you need to get attention from. So to round off today's episode, I'm going to say, to create a unique perceived benefit, a unique selling proposition, the number one thing to do, and this is the how-to, the number one thing to do is to, number one, first understand the conversations that are going on inside your customer's head. So that means you need to know who your customer is, your client is, your patient is, your investor is. If you know who they are and you understand what the conversation is that's going on inside their heads, you can continue that conversation inside their heads by having the correct communication, whether and that's to do with where, in other words, on a what screen or platform and so on, and the what. I mean, are they visual? Are they audio? Are they kinesthetic? In other words, touchy feely? What is that audience? What's the conversation going in the head, and what's the method in which they communicate? So in terms of unique perceived benefit and a unique selling proposition, if we are not understanding who our target market is, what the conversation is going inside their heads, we're already at loss. So, okay, step one, understand who your target market is. Be very, very clear who they are. Number two is understand the conversations in their heads. How do we do that? We talk to them. We have long conversations with them. We understand how they're feeling, how they're talking, and so on. And I can tell you, many people are wrong about the thinking that they are thinking. And the reason why they are wrong is because they are using their fast brain. According to Kahneman, many times the assumptions we make, the slow brain and the fast brain, the fast brain takes no to little energy and doesn't consume any glucose. We don't have to go into survival mode when we make fast and snap decisions. When we have to make long decisions, it consumes huge amounts of energy. So we conserve that energy. So when you are doing your messaging to your market, you want to start with a light message. And then as they are going into understanding more and more how you could solve a problem or an issue that they're having, because remember, you're continuing the conversation inside their heads. As they dig deeper, as they go further, their slow brain takes over. When I say slow, I mean it's the brain that thinks deliberately, the brain that thinks analytically, the one that consumes the glucose. And they're now able to and are willing to expend that energy, that glucose sugar that's inside the brain. They're willing to expend that energy. That means we have got them in a path of now being able to analytically think through the offer that we've put in front of them. But our difficulty in terms of sales and marketing and business growth and so on is to get someone's attention who have already got attention deficit or are already too busy in their own minds and are already on conservation mode in terms of don't want to use up too much energy because they might just get tired, and shifting them over into thinking through and understanding what their problem is and then thinking through your solution to their problem. So if you think about a customer journey, the unique selling proposition, the unique perceived benefit needs to be able to take your customer, your client, your patient, your investor through that journey, all the way from fast brain thinking, which doesn't consume a lot of energy, but it really makes snap, quick decisions. In other words, the messaging needs to be quick, light, and attention getting. And then you need to understand the journey of how you take them into the deeper, richer, more analytical thinking in terms of helping them solve their problems and issues. So when we talk about a unique selling proposition or a unique perceived benefit, the unique perceived benefit for me starts early on. Unique perceived benefit. So is there a quick perceived benefit for me? Yes, it looks like a good idea. I'm going down that path. And then the unique selling proposition is, how do I position myself, selling proposition? How do I position myself as the best possible solution for the problem or issue or challenge or even goal that my target audience wants to achieve or solve? Okay, so please understand, this whole episode is dedicated to a lot of psychology, and it's got a lot to do with behavioral psychology. But if you don't understand and don't get to a deeper understanding about the conversations that go on inside people's heads, you will never be able to help them have the perception that at least you're worth an investigation, spending a little bit of glucose time on your proposition. And the more time they spend on it, the deeper and more invested they become in trying to find that solution that they're looking to solve, to solve a particular problem or to help them achieve a certain goal. So that's the end of today's episode. Thank you very much for joining us today on our 42 business growth principles. We have a weekly episode on this specific podcast. We have multiple podcasts running, but I'm dedicating this podcast specifically to these 42 business principles. Just to recap, episode 1, we covered marketing as the ultimate leverage. The second episode was about multiple channels of distribution. The third one was about positioning. The fourth one, which is today's one, is about the unique selling proposition or unique perceived benefit. I really hope that you enjoyed it. Please like, comment, or give me any kind of questions that you have. I'm not selling anything. I'm really just trying to share my knowledge, my experience, and the things that I've seen out in the marketplace, and just trying to tell everyone like it is, from my point of view, clearly. But I would like to share so that you can make better decisions and that you can stop skipping over the things that are important and spend a bit of time on the right things and the right kind of focus. Thank you very much. Have a super week. Work on your USP for the week, your unique perceived benefit at the top end to grab attention, remembering the fast brain, and at the bottom of your customer journey or investor journey or whatever journey it is you're working out, that your unique selling proposition helps them solve. But when they get into analytical mode and they're willing to invest the glucose and the energy into that proposition of yours. Thank you. Have a good weekend, and we'll chat to you next week. Thank you. Bye-bye.